Continuing with inequalities, we're going to have this entire chapter be about inequalities. So if you don't like them, well, that is very unfortunate for you. But hopefully by the end of this, maybe you will be friends with inequalities. So 2-4 is inequalities with absolute value. Okay, so we're not just going to have simple equations. We're going to have this kind of complication thrown in where we have absolute value. So what is absolute value? Do we remember? I'm sure that we're racking our brains trying to remember what absolute value was, and we don't remember because it was so long ago, like before the pandemic. So let's go ahead and review. So if we have absolute value, it's sort of like this magic box that whatever number I put in, it's going to come out to a positive number. Okay, so it comes out to this happy positive number once it's put inside that absolute value, which means if I have -5, it's going to turn into +5. If I have -1, it would turn into 1. And then same thing if I put in regular positive numbers, they're just not going to change. 5 inside the absolute value would just stay 5. 1 inside the absolute value stays 1. Okay, so very simple concept, but we're going to make it a little bit more difficult using an inequality. So suppose that we have an equation. We have 3x plus 2, and it's inside absolute value, and that is greater than 4. Okay, so I'm going to replace this whole thing, 3x plus 2, with squiggly to demonstrate this in a more simple manner. So if squiggly in the absolute value is greater than 4, what kind of values are going to work for squiggly? Well, first of all, numbers like 5, 6, 7, and so on, all of those numbers are going to work, right? Because all of them are greater than 4. That's quite obvious. But remember that this is inside the absolute value, so that means -5, -6, -7 will come out positive and will be greater than 4. So squiggly is greater than 4, or squiggly is less than -4, right? -5, -6, -7, those are all less than -4. Okay, so let's go ahead and put 3x plus 2 back in for squiggly. That's what we originally set squiggly equal to. So 3x plus 2 will be greater than 4, or 3x plus 2 will be less than -4. And then we're just going to manipulate the equations by subtracting 2 from all the sides. So then we'll get 3x is greater than 2, or 3x is less than -6. We're going to divide by 3. And then we're going to end up with x is greater than 2/3, or x is less than -2. We know how to graph this from our previous sections. So we're just going to do open dots at -2 going to the left because it's less than, and an open dot going to the right because that is x is greater than 2/3. Okay, so typically that greater sign starting where the absolute value is going to turn into or, typically. Not always, but typically. Let's go on to one where we see something a little bit different. So now I have some things that are outside of the absolute value and some things that are inside the absolute value. So you might think, oh, I see a greater than sign. So this is going to be an or. So I can right away just rewrite this whole thing, take the absolute value off, and I'm going to say that -2 times 2t minus 5/3 plus 3 is greater than or equal to 1. Or I can make that whole left side of the equation less than or equal to -1, right? That's what we did before, so it's just the exact same thing. But no, I'm going to tell you that you should never do this. Don't do this. If you see things that have absolute value around them and things that do not on the same side of the equation, you do not want to go straight to that method. Okay, so what we're going to do first is we're going to get the absolute values by themselves. So we're going to start by subtracting 3. And once we've done that from both sides, we're going to divide by -2. But remember, and you're going to see me write it wrong. What's wrong there? Oh, yep, I divided by a negative, so I need to have less than or equal to. I need to flip the inequality. Okay, so once I've finished kind of, simplifying the equation, now I can take the absolute values off, okay? So I'm going to tell you that less than is usually and, but I'm going to show you why. So again, we're going to replace everything inside the absolute value with squiggly, which means absolute value of squiggly is less than is less than or equal to 1. Now, 0 and 1 would work, but -1 would also work, right? Because it would become +1. -2 doesn't work, because if I plug in -2, it becomes +2, which is greater than 1. Okay, which means that everything in between -1 and 1 is going to work. Okay, but remember, though, that written together, that between really means and. Okay, so this is an and problem. So we're going to manipulate all three sides of the equation. I say all three sides, including the middle side. It's not really a side, but anyway, just bear with me. Once I've continued to do that, I multiplied everything by 3. Now I'm going to add 5 to everything. And then once I add 5 to everything, I'll divide by that 2t. Or I'll just divide that 2t by 2. So then I end up with 1 is less than or equal to t is less than or equal to 4. That's going to be a conjoined line, right? Usually and is conjoined line. So I'm going to show that my solution for t is everything in between those two values. I hope you guys have a fantastic day. Good luck.